Today I wanted to ask your opinion on whether or not Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have reached a top. And the reason I wanted to ask you this question is because I'm starting to notice within my own circle of friends, my own circle of associates, and even my family, more and more interest in Bitcoin. And it's almost all associated with, how do I make money off of this new trend? And I'm starting to see people bring it up that I would not associate with Bitcoin at all. I mean, these are people that wouldn't know what a meme is that are talking about Bitcoin. They're not even familiar with the internet, and they want to know more about Bitcoin. This sort of thing, and when I say know more about Bitcoin, what I should say is whether or not they should invest money into it. That sort of mentality really does concern me, and I'm starting to see a lot more of it. I think it's the result of the fact that we see it being covered on more news stations. We're starting to see it covered on a daily basis on CNBC. It's actually Bitcoin week on CNBC. We're just getting to the end of it. Wall Street Journal has covered on the front page numerous times at this point. Maybe not always on A1, but at least on B1. We're starting to see it in the What's News section of the Wall Street Journal. We're starting to realize that I think more and more news companies are going to cover Bitcoin because they're realizing that all of the interest and all of the eyeballs are on Bitcoin at the moment. You know, I know with Seeking Alpha in particular, which is a website that I wrote on for a while and still occasionally write for, they initially were against having articles on Bitcoin, and that suddenly changed, and now they're talking about it and promoting it a whole lot with their own news coverage. So it's very interesting watching this transformation of Bitcoin into this mainstream thing. And we actually, just 2 weeks ago, we saw Katy Perry ask Warren Buffett his opinion on it. And we already know what his opinion is. People are saying that, she didn't reveal what his advice is, and she didn't, at least as far as I'm aware. But we already know that Warren Buffett thinks that it's a bubble. And by the way, if you're on the fence as to whether or not it is a bubble, it is. I mean, really, there should be no doubt in people's minds when you look at an appreciation in value like this, especially when it's not followed by an increase in adoption. And let's be real here, the reason why transaction volume in Bitcoin is increasing is because prices. More people are buying Bitcoin, more people are sending Bitcoin from exchanges to hardware wallets, more people are sending Bitcoin between exchanges. That's why volume is increasing. It's not really because more businesses are starting to accept Bitcoin. In fact, there's numerous reasons for why you shouldn't accept Bitcoin at the moment, the least of which is transaction fees, which are bad enough that Steam discontinued accepting Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin was not ready for this level of adoption yet because it's too early stage. And as a result of that, its use as a transaction medium has actually decreased. The other reason I'm so certain that Bitcoin is a bubble is because even among the strongest Bitcoin believers, you will see that there is a word of caution. On the Bitcoin subreddit, which is probably the most, I don't know how to describe it, but they are so pro-Bitcoin that they completely are oblivious to almost anything that isn't Bitcoin. Even on that subreddit, there was a pinned thread about investing responsibly and being careful, and that Bitcoin likely was a bubble, and that was back at $10,000. And there was a lot of support for that thread. Now, Coinbase recently sent out an email to say, invest responsibly. You want to know why they sent that email out? It's not because they care about your well-being. They still want to get all that volume from your trading. No, the reason they sent out that email is to cover their asses in the event that this bubble does pop. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if it does pop, and when I say pop, I don't mean from 17,000 to 10,000. I mean from 17,000 all the way down to 3,000, or even lower. If it does pop, you can bet that lawsuits will fly in all directions. The blame will be thrown almost anywhere you can possibly imagine. It will be thrown at the SEC, it'll be thrown at Coinbase, it'll be thrown at BitPay, it'll be thrown at almost anybody. And by the way, BitPay is yet another company where the people in charge have said that they think it's likely a bubble. So my question to all of you is, are we reaching a top, or do we still have a while left? Is more dumb money going to pile in and continue to rise Bitcoin's price? Is the institutional futures that we're going to see launch next week, are they going to result in more capital coming into Bitcoin? Because the futures that launched this week, I already knew that the liquidity would be low, but it's really, really low. Okay? So it's very interesting watching all of this recently and seeing behavior that is very bubbly. Okay, I mean, very bubbly. I mean, Bitcoin was already bubbly all the way back at $6,000. Now we're all the way up at $18,000, and the behavior has gotten much, much worse. My opinion is that Bitcoin still has a few months, probably. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if the bubble popped tomorrow, but I do think we still have a few months left. Now, the reason I think we have a few months left is because as long as the news stations keep publishing stories about it, as long as we still continue to see a push for ETFs and a liquid derivatives market, as long as we see more people chasing performance, the value of Bitcoin can do whatever the hell it wants. Go up to 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, so on and so forth. People are in buy the dip mode. At some point that's going to transition because there's not going to be any capital to buy the dip. But at the moment, I think we're still in buy the dip mode, meaning that if Bitcoin went down to $10,000, I think people would bid it back up. I know there's a lot of people waiting on the sidelines for a dip at the moment, a lot of dry powder that's waiting, so I don't think there's going to be any substantial dips. There might be a substantial dip down to 10,000, 8,000, somewhere in that ballpark, but I don't think it's going to be the bubble popping and we're going to see a bear market. I don't think that's going to happen for a little while at least, because again, I think a lot of dumb money, it may be dumb, but they usually do want to wait for a little bit of a dip. I mean, it's very difficult from a mental perspective to buy something when it's at all-time highs. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are currently waiting for Bitcoin to go down to that $10,000 level to buy it. However, my timeline for when the bubble pops, I haven't really had a lot of time to cement this in my mind, but I originally thought it was going to be sometime in 2019. After ideally an ETF was approved and on the market for a little while. Now that timeline has sort of been accelerated for me. I'm starting to think that the bubble might pop in 2018, and so I think that maybe we only have a few months left. It'll be interesting to follow this development. I'm very interested in hearing your opinions regarding as to whether or not we are in a bubble, because again, I'm starting to see behavior that is very, very suggestive that we might be in one. And it's concerning me. To be quite honest with you, it is concerning to me. For those of you that are invested significantly into cryptocurrencies and you have nothing to fall back on, in other words, you have no money in your bank account, you have no money in stocks, no money in bonds, no money in any other type of asset, you might want to start thinking about diversifying. You may want to start thinking about, you really should have been thinking about diversifying from the very beginning. I currently do that. I have money in stocks, I have money in fixed income, I have money in real estate investment trust. So in the event that cryptocurrencies crash, it's not going to change my life. But in the event that that would change your life, then you're going to want to start thinking about investing possibly into other asset classes, at least in my opinion, because we don't know when this will pop, but when it does, a lot of you are going to get burned, and you want to make sure that if you do get burned, you can survive, right? You got to have that first aid kit. Anyway, I very much am interested in hearing your opinions on whether or not the bubble is reaching its top, or are we just going to keep going? And I think we are. I actually think we are going to keep going. I don't think we've reached the top yet. Maybe we get a little bit of a correction. Maybe we don't reach 20,000 anytime soon. Maybe it takes 2 months, 3 months, or maybe it happens tomorrow, right? But I don't think that the bubble is going to pop, at least quite yet. I'd be very interested in hearing your opinions, especially because this market, again, I feel like it's getting dumber by the day. So leave your thoughts in the comments section below. I'm very interested in reading them. And as usual, if you like the video, there are some Amazon affiliate links in the description that you can use to support me and get yourself something cool associated with Bitcoin. Otherwise, leave a like, comment, and subscription, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching.